Hey everyone, ahlan wa sahlan fikum. Welcome back to another video. This one is a very special one, and I'm really excited to show you something that I've been working on for a long time now. So as you know, for pretty much like years now, I've been working on a sort of interactive dictionary, let's call it, for Palestinian Arabic with like hundreds and hundreds, I guess thousands even, of words in Palestinian Arabic. Now, most of you know this as this kind of like Excel spreadsheet that I've been offering like on the Patreon page, but actually it's really turning into much more than that, and I've been trying to make it into a resource that you can actually learn, or rather use as a learning tool to actually guide you through from start to, well, you never finish learning a language, but you can actually use it as a sort of course to go through and learn and make sure that you're learning everything that you need to learn, and it's actually kind of like a course. So I'm going to show you today how you can go from this right here to this over here to this. So as you can see, there's more than just the spreadsheet itself. So the spreadsheet itself is kind of a starting off point, and then by using Wiktionary, which is linked to the spreadsheet, we're able to sort of create a much more expansive tool with usage examples, conjugation tables even, and a lot more that I want to show you today. And the point of the video is to be as a kind of part two, or let's say a continuing conversation based on the one that we had a couple of weeks ago, where I was talking about how to create your own study plan for Arabic and the things that you should be working on and the things that you should keep in mind. Now, the more I thought about it after that, I realized that when you're determining like what vocabulary to learn, because I talked about these three pillars, vocabulary and the content of a language, how to use the language, like the theory of the language, and then the actual practice. But of course, when it comes to what words should you be learning, how should you really be going about like prioritizing things, it can get a little bit tricky without any kind of guidance. And for a long time now, as you know, I've been sharing this spreadsheet with folks on the Patreon. But I want to talk about it a little bit more because there's a lot more going on here than sort of immediately meets the eye. If I do say so myself, I mean, I've really been trying to make it into a much more useful tool. So I want to unpack it a little bit today. I mean, and on one hand, it's kind of like a tutorial for how to use the spreadsheet, but it's also just a tutorial for like Wiktionary and like a lot of things, and also just like an update of like what I've been doing. And I'm of course open to suggestions as well. But I want to start like right here because this is the front page of the spreadsheet, and I want to share with you like how you can really use this as like a stepping stone to develop your vocabulary in Palestinian Arabic. So of course, I mean the spreadsheet, like it starts with this verb page, which has like over 800 verbs. I'm not even going to scroll down because my computer will crash. There's so much information on here. But yeah, we have the past and the present tense, and the roots, and also all of the derived terms. When they're actually, in cases where they're actually used. So, for example, istakhdam, to use. We have istikhdam, and you can click on it, and there's like a little thing that shows you that it means use. So, like the use of a word, for example. And likewise for active participles. For example, well, let's say, I don't know. I mean, for example, nijh, to succeed. And so we have the active participle, and it's like successful. So, I mean, and yeah, so I have the masdar, the active participle, and the passive participle. So in this case, samah, to allow, masmuh, allowed. So, and I've only added the ones that are really relevant and the ones that are really used. So there's already like tons of information already on here, but the challenge was always that it's like almost too much information, right? And it's like hundreds and hundreds of verbs, and so how do you know where to begin? Like, do you just go from number 1 to 800? Well, not really. That's not really the best way because I've grouped them in terms of like themes or like words that are kind of related to each other, if they have the same root. But that doesn't mean that you should really be learning all of those all at the same time. So what I've started to do recently, literally in the past month, or even the past couple of weeks, is I've started to create these sets of 20 verbs that you should learn, like as from day one. Like if you are completely new to the dialect, learn these 20 verbs. So these are the lists. And right now, this spreadsheet just has 6 sets, but there's actually more that I'm working on. But honestly, the idea behind this, again, is that these are the most essential verbs that you must know. So almost like don't even look at the initial front page at first, but look at these ones. If you're trying to use the spreadsheet to actually learn and sort of follow a kind of curriculum, then you can actually look at these sets. And I honestly think that if you learn these, so if this is 20 verbs per set and it's 6 sets, so that's like 120 verbs. So if you just learn all of these 120 verbs, honestly, I think you will be at an intermediate level. If you can also practice them and be able to use them in a kind of natural, kind of fluid way, I mean, within reason for an intermediate level, honestly, like this is it. I really think so. I mean, even if you can use the first set, the first 2 sets well, that's actually really, that would be very impressive. That would be like a very good starting point. So this is honestly like a lot of information. But anyway, what I've done with this is what this purple color coding means is that these are cross-referenced with other parts of the spreadsheet. So you can actually click on, okay, so let's say you're going through this. So you can actually click on each verb and it will take you directly to where that is on this page. So now, I mean, it takes a little bit of, I don't know why it kind of does it like this, but yeah, so here it is to go, rah. And now the cool thing is that now you can actually use like the fact that it's grouped with other words having the same root or the same kind of idea. So, okay, sure, you're just looking at these basic verbs, but now if you want to study ra, you can see, oh, well, okay, so actually it's, you also have rawa, which means like to go, to return or to go home. And you also have like these other verbs with this root, and there's other ways that you can say this. So that's where you can actually like really dive into this front page, which has all these verbs. But if you're actually just a beginner or you want a little bit of more guidance, like where do I begin because there's so much information on the spreadsheet, that's really the main, not complaint, but the main issue that kept coming up for a lot of people. This is my solution to this. And I really just started doing this, so I really plan on putting even more time and sort of thought into it and maybe like add nouns as well and different things like that. So that's the first thing that I want to show you, which is kind of new. And then the other cool thing is that, although I've been doing this for many months now, but these blue words are actually hyperlinks. So now you can go from, okay, so the first one, can, now you can go, it will find can for you, so now we're here. And actually, I mean, so we were just in Rah, but if you go and try to find Rah by yourself, okay, it's down here. But I mean, it can often take a lot of like going up and down to find things. So I think this is really very much more convenient, if only for myself. And now you can click on can, and guess what? As you can see right here on the screen, it will actually link you to the Wiktionary page, which I already have open. And, oh, let me make sure that I'm showing it to you. And here it is. So I've really started to develop these even more, because before it was like basically just this and like a definition and then this conjugation table, by the way, which is very useful, I think. So this shows all of the different conjugations. That's why, like, okay, sure, the spreadsheet doesn't, it only has like present tense and past tense because I don't want to add too much, like make it very convoluted or anything. But now if you want further detail on a particular verb, you can go directly here and it has all the conjugations already for you. And now I've started not only to add like be, because before can, it was just to be, but there are certain words, especially these beginner kind of basic words, a lot of them have a lot of different meanings and a lot of different usages. So I've made sure to really include all of those in these entries, and I'm working on it actively right now, and adding usage examples for them. So if you just look at all of these example sentences, first of all, it's quite a number of them, but also all of them are slightly different. I mean, they, the verb can, it needs to be in all of these sentences, but they are quite different sentences. Like, Yeah, I mean, I'll let you look at that honestly by yourself, but there's a lot of different uses for to be, and also look, I will show you some other pages. So here's the page for al. So this one is actually, yeah, this one is kind of basic in a way, but there are some tricky things about it because when you add an indirect object, like I said it to you or to whoever, once you add that lam, some interesting things happen. So from bit'ul, it becomes bit'ulli. So the lam becomes doubled and the short or the long vowel gets shortened. So there's kind of different things. So I'm making sure to include all of this information on there for you so that when you're going through, and actually the way that I'm doing it is I'm following the order of the list I made. So like I'm making sure that, you know, if you download the spreadsheet today or whatever, and you just start right away, you know, even if I haven't done like all the verbs yet, you know, as you go through them, I'm also adding and, you know, making sure that I add examples and so on. So I'm kind of following that same, so that I know that I'm including the most important verbs and the most important information. Because before I made this list, I wanted to add example sentences, but I was like, I don't even know where I should begin adding example sentences. So what are the most important verbs? And these are the ones. So this is can, al, shaf, just more example sentences, rah, to go, sar. This one also has several different uses, and some of them are a little bit tricky and not exactly intuitive. So I'm making sure to add all of that information. I really think this is. I usually try not to sell myself too much, like, oh, how amazing this is. But honestly, I think this is really useful. I mean, I like to believe that. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't be doing it, to be honest. That's usually what stops me from doing things if I don't really think it's useful. So I really hope this is helpful. And so these are the ones, I've only done these 6 thus far. Well, actually, there's like over 550 entries on Wiktionary. As you can see, if you go back to the spreadsheet, there's all of these terms in blue. That's because all of these have Wiktionary entries attached to them. So you can open any of them and see the conjugation table. What I mean is that for the example sentences, I did some scattered ones, but now I'm going through the list and making sure that I add these kind of very basic ones. So if you start working on them now, you will be seeing example sentences for all of them because I will be kind of working on that in the next couple of weeks and so on. So yeah, I just basically wanted to show you that because I'm really excited how like I'm trying to integrate everything, and you can just, you know, click on here and it'll take you to, you know, these sections where you can find more verbs that are related, and then go to the Wiktionary, and it's all kind of in one place, and you can move back and forth, and it's not too kind of like chaotic, because before when it was just all of this information, it was kind of a lot. Now, that was the main idea that I wanted to show you. The other thing that I wanted to show you, I mean, just as a little more tutorial, is that this spreadsheet also has a conjugation chart, although this is more like the conjugation like paradigms, you know, the basic like kind of rules, like based on like the voweling and things like that. It looks very confusing, or I mean, not confusing, but it looks like a lot of information. It kind of is, but if you know what you're looking for, like, because as you can see, I have been using in my spreadsheet and in some of my videos, I've been talking about these different types of verbs. Like, you know, you may ask, like, what's DW, what's DY, what's all of that? That's in reference to the type of verb that it is. So I've grouped them, for the sake of these lists as well, I've grouped them in verbs that are similar. I mean, I haven't grouped all of the DW verbs in one place, but I mean, because there's some later on, but you know, I did try to group them as much as I could. You know, can, al, shaf, rah, sar, ash, nam, and then daras, katab, which are odros and oktub. You know, like that follow kind of these same patterns, because it kind of can be tricky at first to learn all these disparate patterns in Arabic and get used to them. The more you really, once you get used to it, you realize that it's not as complicated as it seems at first. But that's the point of me, first of all, labeling what types they are. 2, giving you a conjugation like chart where you can just easily reference like, okay, what does it mean dy? What does it mean dw? And all it means is that they both have a broken thing in the middle, but dy becomes from sab into besiv, and dw becomes from shaf to beshuv. So again, the point of doing all of this, even though it seems complicated, is actually to make it sort of simpler and make it clear that it's not as arbitrary as it can seem at first. So that's the point of doing that. Yeah, so that's what the conjugation chart is. There's a lot. But then again, if you want to look at an individual verb, you can just open the Wiktionary entry and there's automatically generated charts for pretty much, well, no, for all of the entries. And there's over like 550 verbs on Wiktionary right now, out of about just over 800 verbs in total on the spreadsheet. And obviously, we prioritize the most important verbs. So yeah. Now, just for these last two pages, we have this others page, which just has these, like what, which, something, anything, everything, sometimes, and these kinds of words. Numbers. I've also started adding expressions. Because actually this can also be a little bit tricky because like expressions in Arabic, the response is it's usually not the same as what you initially say. So, if someone says ahlan wa sahlan to you, the response is not ahlan wa sahlan. Or even like assalamu alaikum, right? I mean, that's not how you answer that. So anyway, I've tried to add that as well. I mean, it's just a fun side thing. It's not really like a major thing. But I did want to show you this, though. So I've really been revamping the nouns page, which was, I think verbs are really, really important. So I've always kind of prioritized that. But I realized that this page, which has all these nouns, could also be very overwhelming. Again, a lot of information. And it's kind of like disorienting. At this point, there's like 1,400 words on this page, which is like actually a lot if you just like scroll, So I've basically made like basically like a table of contents up here, which you can click on and also go to the different sections. So now it's kind of clear like what you're looking at, like at one glance. Okay, so I want to learn the things of the home, that kind of thing. So I don't know why it comes up down here, but anyway. So here it is: house, building, neighborhood, room, whatever, all of these things. And then you can click back here and it'll take you back up. And another cool thing that I'm doing related to that is that, let's say food. Okay. So I'm also adding these purple boxes around here, which I showed you initially on this page, and it's also cross-referencing because I'm trying to make it even more clear, like the relationships between words. So before, like now I'm basically, if a word has the same root as a word that's on the verbs page, I want to make that connection a little bit clearer. So for example, kitchen, matbakh, okay? This is a noun of place, but you could learn that just totally separately, but if you actually look at it, it makes sense, right? Because a noun of place, and then what's the root? Right here, the same root as tabakh. That's the root, right? So, which means to cook. So you can click on here, and it'll take you to cook, to drink, to blah, blah. So now, you're learning, you go here to look for some food things, and you can also see some food-related verbs. So to cook, to fry, to bake, to knead, and all of these are also referenced over here. So I have the word bread, khubz, but actually I also link it back to khabaz, which means to bake. So bake is like almost the same word as bread in Arabic, like because they have the same root. So that I think will make it a lot more like making those connections, like try to think like an Arabic speaker in a way. I mean, see how these words are actually really interconnected and how the root system of Arabic actually makes things potentially easier and it makes these semantic relationships clearer. So anyway, I've really worked very hard on this, and just because I really think that it can be a very useful tool, especially now that we're adding usage examples, especially now that we have this list, to actually guide you through. So before it was just kind of an info dump, but now I'm really making it like the kind of thing that you can like carry with you, and even like a very, very beginner or a very, very advanced learner, everyone can benefit from it. And of course, I'm open to suggestions. So if you think that there's something else that I should be adding, please do let me know. And yeah, so now how to get this. So as I've mentioned before, this is available to download from the Patreon. Now, of course, I mean, so obviously a Patreon is like a monthly subscription service, but I mean, you can just, subscribe and then download it and then, unsubscribe for the next month. I mean, the subscription is like £3 a month. So it would be like just buying it for £3. Now, the only thing is that, I mean, of course, I have a bunch of other things that I post on the Patreon as well. But at this point, I do think that it is worthwhile to stay subscribed. And I'm not saying that just because, but the reason is because this, for example, this right here was not even in the last update of the spreadsheet, because I basically post an update every month of the things that I've been working on, because I'm always updating the spreadsheet. So this was not on here last month. So if you had just gotten the spreadsheet and then bye-bye, then you won't have this. Now, some people sometimes do that, and then they email me later, hey, can I have the new version? And I will send it to you. I mean, I'm very happy to do that. Like, it's not like, please think of the Patreon as like a donation, because I think that this should, like, information should be free. I really think that's why I put this stuff on Wiktionary as well. I mean, it's really just like a donation, and if that's hard for you, then please do email me. I will send you the spreadsheet. Like, it's honestly totally fine. But like the simplest way to do it is if it's okay with you, you can subscribe to the Patreon. And again, if you can stay subscribed, then you can just automatically download the new updates every month. And I definitely think that the next couple of months are going to have pretty substantial updates, because I'm going to keep adding more usage examples. I'm going to keep working on this list and doing a lot more stuff, because I have like a little bit more time in the next coming months. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. All of those links are in the description, like the Patreon and all that stuff. So yeah, again, I want to underscore that this video was not just like promo or anything. It's just that I have really added a lot to the spreadsheet, and I realized that I don't think I ever really made a video explaining what the spreadsheet is, but I always like mention it. So I thought it would be worthwhile. And yeah, I think I'll basically leave it at that. And just finally, I guess I'll just bring it back to that conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago about creating your study plan. Again, the three main like pillars, so to speak, of language learning. It's not just practicing using the language, but understanding how the language works, the theory, the grammar, and also working on the vocabulary. Sometimes people work on some but not the others. They try to practice, but they haven't even really put in the time to learn vocabulary, or they learn a bunch of random vocabulary, but then they don't actually use it, or like there's a lot of grammar that's missing, and so you know things, but then your sentences are all out of whack. So it's important to work on all of that, even if, pacing yourself. As I said, actually, I guess I'll just say again that in addition to doing this, which is, going to be very handy when it comes to studying that content and learning that vocabulary, with regards to the theory or grammar kind of pillar and knowing how the language works, I have been doing this kind of language coaching, teaching, lesson offering thing. Over the past couple of weeks, I've started doing that officially. So I am doing basically lessons if anyone is interested. It's like lessons, but if you think about it, my videos are basically already like lessons, like, the ones that are more kind of like scripted and like have all these topics and so on. Those are already basically like lessons. So what we do together is we work through this together and make sure that you are not just like learning the words, but also using them correctly. We go through sentences together. We make sure that you understand all the concepts that you need to understand. And also, ideally it motivates you, and like, I give you a little bit of guidance of like what, you should, study this, study that, because it seems like you're still not understanding this perfectly. And So we can identify gaps together. Sometimes if you're working on your own, it's not really clear what you need to improve on, or like what is missing, or like what's next. So that's what we're doing together over there. But yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all of your support again. I do hope that this is, I mean, this video itself is probably not the most useful thing, but the spreadsheet itself, I really hope it will be useful. I'm gonna post this actual update is not even live yet on the Patreon. I'll probably update it or post it like later, probably tomorrow, and then you can download it and get started on your studying. So yeah, thanks again, and I will see you next time.